My name's Andrew. I'm very pleased to invite Dee Ingalls, co-owner of Smiley Graphics, and friends Diane, Kayla, Michael, and Rachel here today to share more about the creative industries and how they're working in the midst of this pandemic. Dee.
Hey, how's everybody doing? So, what we're working on is we're trying to think of creative ways to help people that align with our brand. And a couple of those people or those organizations are Wildlife Prairie Park and our local Riverfront Museum, as well as the National Park Service. So, we've been doing some work with creating a t shirt that's only sold specifically for those three groups to get all the proceeds.
The reason for this call really is a fireside chat to discuss and to give voice to people in the creative industry about what are you doing right now in the midst of this whole pandemic. How are you doing with your business? And perhaps we can start brainstorming creatively on this call. And so, like Dee was saying earlier, before the recording started, is to be unscripted. It's really unscripted. Anything pretty much goes as long as it's based on the theme of how are we doing in our work? Are we seeing things differently?
I'll jump on real quick. So, you guys have known me. I've been pretty quiet for a while, but you guys have known me as a designer. Um, I was hired to a company called Bloom as a UX designer about 8 months or so ago, maybe even a year ago now. And 4 months into being hired there, they actually decided to make me the CEO of it. So now I'm the CEO of a cannabis point of sale company. So basically, I'm a CEO of a software company, right? So very different than what I used to do, but still the same kind of stuff, same thinking, same design thinking, all that kind of stuff. Just I have to delegate, basically everything, which is hard for creative. But when we learned about what was going on here, obviously all my point of sale systems are in dispensaries in Oregon. So if you don't know what a point of sale is, it's the little thing. If you go to a food truck, they have an iPad. It's on Square. You want a burrito, here you go, flip it around, sign it. Same thing. It runs on an iPad. Obviously, just built for cannabis dispensaries. So when all this stuff started happening, foot traffic obviously died. When lockdown started to approach, sales went up in cannabis like 40-50% for about 7 to 8 days. And then it dropped to normal, and now it's starting to drop little by little. So now we're down about 25% normal to normally what we would have. So over the course of 3 weeks, my team made a whole feature for curbside pickup. So you can basically take your phone out, add something to the menu. We built the whole menu system and everything. When you place your order, it goes directly into the point of sale. They can get it ready, hit ready for pickup. A text message will be sent to the person who ordered that they can come pick it up. So super cool system. It was a really hard pivot to make in such a short amount of time. So that was really cool, and it's working well. And yeah, it was really hard to make the team stop doing everything they were doing, all like 12 of them, and start iterating and start building this thing in 3 weeks, getting it tested and getting it into customers' hands and using it. And it was actually we released it a few days before 420. And if you guys are in the cannabis industry, 420 is the most insane day on the planet for cannabis. Typically, all my competitors' systems go down because so many sales will come in the door that like they will literally go down, which is really embarrassing for them. But we didn't, we actually built a real system, so it didn't happen to us. So it was cool. That's kind of what we did for this whole pivot so far.
So I think I'm also a designer and a strategist and do some creative coaching. And I think with my design clients, I have brainstormed with them on ways to now pivot in this. So I've had clients that normally are in person now are doing things, offering digital products or something like that. And so sometimes they just need our creative idea generation. And to be able to do that with them, I think it's really fun for me. And it's not been something that I've been charging for. It's just something that I want to help them so that they can stay in business. I think that that's also shows empathy and shows love to my clients, which I think is also really important in just in my business. I've also done for creatives, I've done some coaching, just free coaching, just to try to, again, help people, because this is totally new. For me, it is, any of my web clients that I was working with that I do regular updates for, some of those are like, well, we don't have anything to update because we can't do anything. And then some clients are on hold. They're like, well, we want to keep doing the website, but we're not going to be focusing on that right now. And so now it's just about keeping in contact and staying, um, being their friend, I think, is what I really believe in, building real relationships. And so being there to be a brainstorming and helping them think about other business opportunities that maybe they've been sitting on, and now it's a perfect time to work on it. So I think for us, if you're not as busy, it's a great time to learn a new skill or to reach out and make some new friends. And so I think that's where my focus has been for my business.
It's interesting that some of your clients wouldn't want to do web stuff, since it's so critical now.
I was just thinking that same thing because I mean, I primarily do web design and development, and we're just like crazy busy right now, which is a great problem to have, but it's like it's hard to kind of like, I want to help everyone and I can't. Like there's only so many hours in the day, but everyone's like, oh, I need this updated, or we need to finish our new site design and get it up because we need it now more than ever. And we're helping, I mean, as many people as we can, but it's been interesting to see the transition of how before this pandemic, everyone kind of knew their website was important, but just more of like a kind of business card online type thing or a basic portfolio. And now they're realizing how much they can actually do with their websites. So we've been helping a lot of different clients. We're working with the art museum to do virtual tours of their exhibits right now, since obviously no one can attend. And it's just really interesting to see the ways that people are adapting to the times and kind of getting everything online now.
I think the two industries that are now on, well, I have three. So I have a retirement residence. So they have things that are physically, my job was to do their calendar. And so their calendar had to do with physical events at the retirement community. So they've kind of had to, a lot of times they have to teach those people how to use their iPads and things like that. So technology isn't the best with them. And then the other one that kind of put me on hold was construction of new homes. And so that is, I know some new homes the constructions has no problem. But it's in an industry where it's kind of the girl I was working with has a good insight on where things need to go, but it's kind of an old boy network where they are like, ho, we're not making money right now. We're not spending money on doing this website. You tell her to just hold her horses, right? Although I said, hey, I would even be willing to do some of this at a discounted, we can spread it out instead of 3 or 4 payments. We can spread it out to 8 payments, whatever, to help them. But they're in such a worry and anxiety for their business and their health of their business that they're on a hold. So that's the way. So that's a much bigger business or a bigger industry. And then some of my smaller clients that they've had to let people go, and it's a small service business that is not a necessity. And they are worried about, they don't want to spend the money on a new website. I've kind of tweaked what they have to make it work. And we've done some digital products, but it isn't something that they know they want it, but they just can't right now, because I don't want to do it. I've already said I've done some stuff for free, right? But I can't do a website for free. I mean, that's, you gotta, there has to be some sort of limit, and I don't want to discount anybody else in our industry for that.
So pretty much I have a couple retainer clients that I'm working with. One's a summer day camp, and so they have suspended in-person programs for the summer. So I've been working with him on designing a camp at home box, and finalizing some details for that. So the idea, I'm more on the design side of the things, but what they're planning on doing is a little bit like what's been happening for e-learning, but it will focus more on getting kids still connected with friends during the summer, but then have a lot of offline activities for them that will be in the box to get them off of screens. So designing a lot of that. Then a couple other clients have had like major events that have just totally been, now we just don't know if they will be on hold for who knows how long. So doing social media work for them, but like obviously a lot of stuff is suspended. So personally, I've been like really tired. So I have a lot of side projects that I have in mind and ways to market myself, but I've just kind of been laying low. I had a really busy January through March, which typically that's my slowest quarter. And so I've been kind of taking it easy, and we'll decide what I'm doing next.
So, Michael, you shared a really interesting perspective on how it was typically just foot traffic, and now you have to head to, convert everybody to the digital or hybrid space. So it's the idea of the online to offline and then online again. And, a lot of small businesses now are struggling because they're not able to make that leap. To the extent that I'm curious, you designed this system for the cannabis industry, but is that something that can be adapted for other small businesses that are retail, or,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. You could use our system for pretty much any business, but we're going to be probably lacking. I don't know. I'd have to compare to see really what the use case would be, but there's half of our system is, I won't get into it, but half of our system is the compliance part of cannabis, speaking with a government body to report every single sale, every single return, everything. Cannabis is seed to sale. So there's a serial number associated with the seed of a plant all the way up until it is grown into a giant plant, and then it becomes bud, same serial number all the way up until it's purchased and sold. So the government knows every single step of that whole process, how much it weighed, how much it was. And there's also camera footage of that whole process as well, from the growth of it to the sale of it. You can watch the plant go through the whole thing. So tracking all of that is a massive pain in the ass. It's horrible. It sucks. So if you want to pay us, the premium for our point of sale and not use all of that, that's cool with me. But yeah, we're trying to kind of make a one and done system for retailers and make it easy for them to keep selling in their brick and mortar, give them delivery if they want to do that as well. And we also printed out these massive signs because I'm a designer, so I know how to do this for really cheap. So I printed out these massive 2 by 2 foot QR codes with our little Bloom logo in the middle, so they look nice. And it just says order here. And so our shops put them all on the outside of their walls, so people can just literally pull up in their car and they can hit the QR code from their phone without even getting out, make the order. Then they can walk out to the window. And then once they have that URL, then they can go to it anytime, from their home and do the same thing. So it was just an easier way to get everyone using it quickly without having to type in this crazy URL, so.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that could apply to Illinois too, since I think we're legal as well. So I'm sure there are other companies here that are looking for that opportunity.
Yeah.
But above and beyond that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with cannabis, unfortunately, every single state has a different tracking system. So if we
Right.
want to go into Washington, we got to make a whole other compliance thing. And if we want to go to California, same thing. So it's really kind of a mess, but it's also interesting, and they're trying their best. But yeah, it's very messy.
Yeah. But in general too, in general too, the methods that you're doing with the QR codes, that could be also something that is
Yeah.
perhaps adopted by the brick and mortar businesses. I wanted to go back to Rachel. Rachel, you talked a lot about how web is booming now, primarily because it's so big for business when you can't buy stuff in person. Can you share more about the businesses that you're working with? Because ultimately, I think the businesses that make the jump towards digital transformation and in many cases translation of their value proposition visually as well, digitally, those are the businesses that are going to survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we primarily work with all local small businesses. So, I mean, they're all hurting right now because most of them are stores or kind of like in-person places. So, a couple that we're working on are, like I said, the museum. So they're turning their whole experience into virtual using Google has a software. I forget what it's called, but you basically like map out the space with your camera, and then you can do like a virtual tour through it, and you can actually like stop at every piece of art and click on it, and it'll tell you like more information, and it'll like zoom in on it. It's pretty cool. So they're doing that, as well as some what they're calling these like art at home workshops for people, for kids and for adults to do at home, because that's another huge aspect of the museum is all their classes and events and stuff that they can't do right now. We're also working with a couple stores and which already had kind of an e-commerce presence, but not really, kind of on a smaller scale until now when they have to do everything through e-commerce. So we're kind of helping them streamline their shipping processes and online orders and online gift cards and all that kind of stuff. We also have a real estate company, and they're transitioning everything online, taking the time to finally like get their portfolio up to date and all that, and also starting to do virtual open houses, which is pretty cool. And I have a school that I work with also, and as you know, school is pretty much canceled for everyone. So they're transitioning all their schooling onto Google Hangouts and Zoom and a couple other things. So we're working on organizing that whole process for the parents to make their lives a little bit easier, their login info and their tech specs and FAQs and all that. So that's probably like the biggest project that I have ongoing right now. It's just trying to make everybody's lives a little bit easier, trying to make the barrier to entry to all of these places a lot lower so that they can still make money during this time when they're not actually open.
Going on to Diane, you spoke about how these construction companies and others are, not wanting to invest the funds now. I wonder if there's a way, I'd like to hear from everyone. I wonder if there's a way to perhaps reframe the perspective of why this is a good time to strategize and think about why they should be doing it now. Money's tight, absolutely, but curious to hear your thoughts. What are you doing now, Diane, to, perhaps have this conversation?
So I am working with an employee at the company, and that employee's been there for about a year. So brought her on because she understood this, a part of the business, but I'm not sure that there's always, when you have kind of an older not older, meaning in age, but somebody who's just, this is the way we've done it. This is how it's been, that kind of mindset. And then somebody new comes in and says, oh, well, this is how other people are doing it. Had this never happened, we probably would have been able to go in. They still would have probably pushed back to her. She was worried she was losing her job. So she was like, hey, I'm going to do whatever they want me to do. And I totally get that. And so I am just reaching out to her. I try to, we've set up a couple of calls like once every 3 weeks, just to, again, keep the relationship going and to see if there is anything, and just tell them again, because I'm not a pushy person, but I also know that I'm not having a conversation with a decision maker. And that's a big problem, but this is not something I can control. They're not in my local area. They live, in 3 states away. So I don't have access to them, and they don't want to have a conversation with anybody at this thing. The thing with the housing market and doing something like that is that you have to have the state or the local people have to give you those, whatever those, what do you call those things? Permits, to do any of that kind of work. And those are closed. So then everything's on hold and so they're just not wanting to spend the money. So the problem is that they either don't trust the employee that is talking to me, or they don't have, it was, I had just started, they had signed the contract. I had done the wireframe and for the homepage, which is kind of like an outline of what's going to go in. They had given me some images, and that was where we ended. It would be now me setting it up and starting to do the design, and that's when we got on hold. So it was a very early part of the part of the relationship, and so I don't want to be like, oh, well, we need to move, right? Like if you just got married, and then you just wouldn't want to move or change jobs. So it's the same sort of thing. I don't want to like push too hard. So I want to ease in. And if this is what they want, if this is what they need, then I'm there, and I just want to be consistent. But I also want to say, hey, here's some more ideas. And again, I think as she realizes that her job's not in jeopardy, then maybe she becomes, she has a little bit more push to kind of push back and say, hey, I think we should go ahead and do this. And we see that this is going to be the new normal for a while. At some point, the permit places, the government places in North Carolina will open up, and we'll be able to do this. But they're all over the Southeast, and in part of the Northeast. So it's just a wait. And I think I don't ever want to be pushy, probably maybe to my detriment at some point.
But at the same time, as creative professionals, I think it's also our responsibility to reframe and shift that perspective to be like, okay, sure, absolutely. Website's off the table right now. It's on hold. But let's talk about what is important to you guys right now. Maybe you can start with like this, right? The whole idea of this call is to give a voice to the people on the call, to talk about the challenges you're facing, which is what we're doing. And at the same time, maybe in the conversation, something comes up that could be possible. For example, just to share my thoughts while you were sharing, was that, okay, so website's not going forward, that's on hold. Hey, let's have a group meeting with your company, and I will host a 1 hour brainstorming session. I'd love to hear the challenges you're going through. I want to, continue to engage on this relationship, and to, perhaps through our creative thinking process, we'll be able to help you think about strategy. We'll be able to help you think about what is the priority and what is the sequence. What they may think to be the priorities may not necessarily be in the right sequential order. So I think, leveraging creative skills just beyond the production side of things too is something that could be possible. Dee, what are your thoughts?
for me, something that I've noticed is I just reaching out to clients and ask them how they're feeling, what they're experiencing. Some of our clients aren't having any impact. Some clients are having devastating impacts. So just doing those types of things where you're reaching out and just asking them questions allows them to share with you what their needs are instead of you assuming that you know what their needs are.
I feel like in Diane's case that she just put forward, her hands are kind of tied there because she's speaking with somebody who is underneath the decision maker. And it sounds like a much larger company. So there's going to be all kinds of political bullshit in there where if Diane comes in and she's like, hey, I have an idea. The guy who should have had that idea can, be like, yeah, that's great. Go pound sand, we're doing just fine here. I still get my paycheck in this massive company, right? But most of us, I think, I don't know. I'm guessing here, but most of us deal with smaller companies, I would guess, where you actually do speak with the actual decision maker. So I feel like, yeah, asking them to just ask how they are, asking them if they just want to do a free brainstorming, that sounds amazing to me. Because they're probably worried. They probably want to talk it out. But bigger companies, they probably, the ego's there. And yeah, it's hard to get through to those people for sure.
I would also add, I'm Haley, by the way. I don't think I know anyone here, but whatever. I'd also
nice to meet
you. Yeah, thanks. I feel like in this time, right, people are looking at like their current clients and who they're serving, and you can get evidence to feed any thoughts you're thinking that might be around like no one is hiring or like everyone is slow, but it's really just what's happening in your immediate kind of viewpoint right now. Like Rachel is having a different experience because of what her, like, what's going on with her immediate viewpoint. And so another suggestion might be like, let's go talk to some more people. Like, let's go find some more companies, because you're right, your hands could be totally tied with this one and it's just not moving forward, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean that all companies are not moving forward and hands are tied. And we know that's true because, other things are still happening out in the world. So that to me has been, as I've had clients so I'm a coach, like a mindset coach for online entrepreneurs. And so I've had some clients who are freaking out about everything and closing contracts, and some other clients that are like, oh no, I need this now more than I did before. And so it's just a matter of like, great, let me go find more people like that because I know they're out there.
I agree. Haley, I think that's a great point. I think for me, I kind of coming off like I'm like a Debbie Downer. Like I totally am not. Like I am super positive, but I also the clients that I feel like I either haven't built that relationship with yet, I don't want to be real forceful. So I've done those brainstorms with other clients, and it's great. So I feel like the ones that I'm I'm just focusing on those, and I'm just trying to help where I can. Of those, but I think it's kind of like what Michael said. You kind of need to know where you are in the relationship, and and I think it can come across as being a little it's just not in who I want my brand to come across as being forceful or something like that. But I do think what Andrew's saying is offer them a brainstorm. There's nothing wrong with that. They may, they may take me up on it. So I think it's about maybe if that's not maybe what I normally would do, but maybe it would help. And it's just about a fear for me to get through. I think that's something I need to do. And I think I will do that. But I also think maybe it's me reaching out to some of my friends who are other web designers and say, hey, what can I help you do? I mean, I'm not like hurting, and I'm actually using my time to create a product that is, so I feel like this was like a gift of time for me. So I've been able to put in, when somebody said no, I said, okay, well then this is just a door. I'm supposed to go through this one. This is a sign that I am just supposed to work on this other thing. So
nice. Yeah.
I feel like in this time, I don't know if everybody, I think most of you here are, I know you from the future and Chris Doe and all that stuff. Crap, what was I going to say? It seems like it would be really easy right now to ask a business a question that they respond with, I don't know, right? I mean, what are you going to do about all this stuff going on? I don't know. Do you want to try to figure that out. You know, as opposed to like, wow, it looks like you really suck right now. You want some help, and they're gonna be like, no, you know, screw you, man. You know, so yeah, it's a lot easier to get them to go down that path with the questioning for sure.
I absolutely agree. Just to go back to Michael, your point about large organizations, and also Diane, your point in regards to you know, not being pushy is about also analysis, right? Like you're onboarding clients, you want to understand who are your advocates in the organization. You want to understand also who are the champions. Also importantly, you want to understand who are the veto powers, people that can say no to the work that you're doing, and also understanding the motivations behind why that could be the case. And so, you know, keeping that central focus and understanding those relationships is going to be important as we all keep going forward. And to coming back to Michael's point about reframing it to like, hey, how is it going with you? Is it valuable if we jumped on a call to explore? Again, we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes what we don't know could potentially be helpful, right? We're operating on a lot of hidden assumptions, and the more that we can experiment and test, and I think it's a benefit of being a creative person during this challenging time. We are in many ways comfortable with some level of ambiguity. Why? Because we start with a blank piece of paper. And then we put our pen and you know, we put our pencil to it and we make something out of it. And that's what we're some ways used to doing. So I think it's a great time for us to be really thinking how strategically we can align. Diane, to your point too, maybe it's a strategic time to plan. What is the next step for you, right? So whatever that looks like, and how we can continue to grow the businesses that we work for and serve.
I think that's a great point. And I made a post kind of about this the other day and didn't really think about it this way until you just brought it up, Andrew. But I think it's a great time to build relationships with clients, and really strong, deep relationships, because you're helping them out in their time of need. And I got this quote from Michael Janda that he told me when he was in town for our conference, and it was like, those that are willing to shovel manure with you are like the longest lasting friends and acquaintances that you'll ever have, because they're willing to help you when you need it the most. So I think that's an interesting perspective on how you can kind of build long-term relationships with clients right now by helping them.
One of the things that I've been talking about a lot is the transactionality of business, and how we need to move from a very, very transactional space into actually talking and caring about their actual well-being. So that's a big area.
I think it's funny because I ended up connecting with my connection at that one company. And so then I also am just investing in her, because I also think that this might not be a long-term company for her. So I've invested in her, and we've done coaching just for her and thinks about how she could pivot and how she can plan. And I don't just invest in, it's not always about the money. For me, it's about these longer relationships that are fulfilling, you know? So for me, she may go do some amazing, great thing, but right now I see somebody who's stuck. And then I also, you know, her boss is not willing to have a conversation. So then I'm going to focus my efforts on somebody who is malleable. I always think that it's about having a teachable spirit. And I think when you can pick up on that vibe from some clients, and you just need to tell them that you're there. And it is that long-term, kind of like what Rachel's saying, just being there. But I also think I don't want to just waste effort on people who would take advantage or it would be a waste of their time and a waste of my time. So then I can align myself. It doesn't matter if it's the CEO or if it's just somebody in marketing, because the somebody in marketing is going to have a job somewhere, you know, in the next 10 years. And if I've aligned myself, because I believe in her and how she does business, I would rather align myself with that than align myself with a company who's trying to do business like they did, you know, in the 80s.
I think there's a lot of very interesting like maturing and like development that's happening right now for a lot of people as they're trying to like make new choices and be different. Like you said, that person you're working with in marketing, like there's probably a lot of maturing she's doing as a leader right now that's totally gonna, you know, pay off for her in years to come.
To build on your point, Diane and Haley, we're sowing seeds, and no one sows seeds to not expect a return, right? But part of the seed sowing, seed planting process is also about, you know, developing and curating the culture, which is what we're all aligned to, right? We're aligned to a culture of lifelong learning. We're aligned to a culture of being critical and have open feedback. We're all aligned to, you know, the just a continuation of building community and growing together. And that's also part of the whole journey that we're on, which is really why I'm so delighted to have everyone here and contributing. Because really, ultimately, at the end of the day, we can't go as far as we possibly can if we didn't go together. So that's why we're here.
Isn't it funny that you did seeds and then Michael knows how to like track the whole process? He could weigh it and think about it. He could do a great analogy about what it is like with cannabis inside and how what it's like as really an entrepreneur during this time. But you have to be willing to grow. You have to be in the right mindset. Like Haley's saying, you have to have the right soil, the right light. And if you're not, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to make I don't know anything about pot. I've never smoked pot or done anything with it. So I'm so sorry. But I did see the analogy of
Me
the
too.
seed, right? That was great.
Well, if
And
you
we
ever
were
want to
talking
learn how
about
to smoke
shoveling
it,
manure.
I will definitely help you guys out.
And Rachel said, as we were saying what you were going to say, Rachel.
I said, and we were talking about shoveling manure. It just all ties back in together.
And okay, so I'm seeing a pattern emerge. We're talking about curating the environment, curating the right environment for opportunities and possibilities. Some of you may have heard from the study of behavior change, and it's called choice architecture. The idea that you're in control of a particular environment, so much so that you're able to effect change because you're in control. Not so much for the idea of control itself, but to create systems, processes, and pathways so that you can impact the greatest outcome, right? And so with regards to the manure, with the seeds, with the light, with the water and everything else, I think that's a big piece of what we're well positioned to do in design and in as creative professionals, is to create the environment where we can thrive and others can thrive too as a result of that.
I feel like, especially as a coach, but I talk with my clients a lot about choice architecture, but you know, I just talk with them about like their agency to create the environment that's going to give them what they want or need to move forward. And obviously, I think it's so interesting with COVID, like everyone is impacted in all these different ways, but the people, at least people I work with, like they already work online, right? So there isn't like massive shifts in how they're working. But to Rachel's point earlier, I think Rachel earlier said something like, you know, they kind of knew their website wasn't like they kind of knew stuff wasn't quite what they wanted to be. And I think this is kind of forcing people, like putting a little pressure to have people make choices to put things where they know they should be for the outcomes that they want. So obviously there's like, you know, a lot going on that people can't control, but there's some things that this is forcing people, I think, to control, and like giving them an opportunity to make different choices to create this environment that they want to be in, that's going to get them to the results they want a year from now or 2 years from now. My name is Haley Thomas, and I am a mindset coach for online entrepreneurs, and I specifically coach people towards having clarity around a vision that they want for their work a year from now, and then being very like pragmatic with the action steps to get there. We talk a lot about choice architecture and decision making, and learning to be better at those skills so that you can end up where you want to be. I'm based in Normal, Illinois, and just around working from home.
So I'm in Oregon. I don't really know how lockdown rules go, but it seems they're you need to do it, but you don't need to do it. I don't know. But everybody here is social distancing, so everybody's being super weird. It's super awkward to go outside and see everybody standing really far apart with their masks on. A lot of my shops are really small. So because of how the laws have worked in Oregon, stores will have bought like this big, nice, open, beautiful store where, 30 people can come in. They did that. They got it all set up. It was ready to go. And then when the laws came in, they were like, hey, guys, just by the way, 2 weeks before it all becomes legal, you actually need a waiting room that people come in, and then they show you an ID, and then there has to be a door, and then they go through the door, and then you go into the shop. By the way, only one person can be in the shop at a time, and you need to chop the shop in half, and medical people have to go to this shop. They cannot see the recreational, and recreational people have to go to this side. They cannot see the medical. So it's just like, everybody's like, what the fuck, right? So that all happened. So they're putting up walls, doors, windows, changing everything, right? Cool. So a new shop will open and be like, oh, waiting room? Cool. Let's buy this place with a waiting room. It's already ready to go. Has a big shop floor. Cool. Then the laws will come in and they'll say, hey, actually, you don't need a waiting room anymore. So, sorry, guys. And they're like, what? So now I have like a store with this beautiful waiting room that people walk through the door. They just walk right through it into this little tiny room that's like the size of my room, because it was 2 rooms, right? It's a total nightmare. So the governing body here actually relaxed regulations on curbside pickup like right away, which was really cool. But just from the social distancing and everything, it's just kind of obvious that foot traffic is going to be massively low. Nobody wants to touch anything anymore. You can't go and like smell. I'm cannabis, right? People go in and they smell the jar of cannabis before they buy it, and it's like getting like a wine or something, for people. They want to you can't taste it, but it's as close as you can get to smelling it. So you can't do that anymore. One of my shops, you can't even get anywhere near the glass. You have to like stand at this line far back. And pretty soon, I think Oregon is going to straight up say, you can't go into the shops anymore. You just have to do curbside. That's what they did in California for cannabis. So I speak with all of my shops on a daily basis. I'm very one-on-one with all of my stores. We text each other all the time. It's kind of one of the differences between my company and all of my competitors, where you just can't talk to them. So I was aware right away of what was needed. And I just would literally call my shops and be like, hey, we're going to think of making this. What do you think? And they would tell me. So I literally, I may sound smart and our pivot may sound really cool, but it was just my customers saying, we need this. So we listened and we did it. Yeah. And it seems like no one's really doing that. I don't know why. No one seems to be listening to their customers, or my competitors anyway. So
that's a really big part, right? How often do we listen to our customers as opposed to telling our customers what we think they want and need? Mm-hmm. And that's the big part, I think, in a lot of people, getting out of our own heads and be like, hey, let's listen for a change.
Yeah, what was super funny was when I was put in charge of this company, everybody goes, okay, Mike, what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Well, what do we build? I don't know. What do they want? And they go, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, let's go ask them. So we immediately, my product owner, John and I went and got our handler licenses to be able to go into a shop and legally sell weed as a bud tender, they're called. was like an hour process online. Yeah, they're called bud tenders, by the way. So like that's just what they're called. This is the weirdest thing. But yeah, so we went into several shops and did shifts as bud tenders, with shops running our competitor systems. And as a UX person, I'm sure everybody here, like just watching it was like a nightmare. You go in there and I'd just be standing behind the guy, and somebody would come in and they'd be like, hey, I'd like to buy 10 pre-rolls, which is like a pre-rolled joint. Because it's a discount and I'm a veteran, or it's a discount day and I'm a veteran. So 2 discounts. So the bud tender would have to go, okay, clicking buttons, right? Click, add 1 button to, or add 1 pre-roll to the cart, add discount, military discount, add discount, daily discount, go. Next pre-roll. You have to do this 10 times. I'm like, why the hell isn't there a button that you just click, 10 or, times 10, or I want 10 of these. And they're like, oh, I don't know. And so we just like pull out our iPad and be like, our system, you say, I want 10 of these, and you're done. And they were like, oh my God, that's crazy. Holy crap. And I'm just like, what? This is the most basic like stuff ever. So just, just a couple hours watching these people use these systems was, super enlightening. And yeah, we just fixed the stuff and gave it to them. And apart from the fact that all of our competitors their basic functionality doesn't work. So it was definitely interesting. I'm kind of going on a tangent now. I don't even remember what the question was, but
I think
listening to the customer is super important.
I think what you're explaining is service design. You're studying humans, you're studying their pathways, their behaviors. And then
what's really, and what's super interesting about people in cannabis is when cannabis became legal, most people that got into it right away, they weren't business people, they were cannabis people. So they opened a shop, the light doesn't work. Well, we'll just staple a flashlight to the ceiling. Like that's the kind of shit they would do, right? Because they're just like, fix the problem. Like, cannabis was illegal a week ago. Like, who cares? Just do whatever needs to be done. We need to put up this wall to have a waiting room. Just throw a cable through the wall, put a fake light in there, whatever needs to happen. And now that cannabis is maturing and business people are coming in, those people are starting to get pushed out little by the more business savvy people who are willing to, not sit there for 10 minutes to add 1 person to the cart while the line gets long. And by the way, there's a dispensary in a minute walking distance from our shops. There, you can go walk to 3 different dispensaries from just walking out the door. So why would you wait? So speed is extremely important, I don't know. It's really interesting.
Michael. So you saw a need and you made a quick change and you're just fixing things. What in your career background do you feel like gave you the confidence or the know-how to make this pivot or see the need for change or the need for invention?
So like for like little things like the 10 button press, the kind of thing?
Well, for all of it. If you think about even the smallest thing has a ripple effect in business. What do you think gave you the confidence to come in and just go, okay, we need to do this, this, and this? What kind of training have you had?
I mean, this is from my design background. Personally, I've been doing like UX, web design, app design kind of stuff forever. So a lot of button pressy, application kind of stuff. So the less button presses, the better. The easier it is to understand without training, the better. So yeah, just seeing people suffer like that, it sucks. But at the same time, these people, the cannabis people, they are resilient and they are adaptive. So when something like that happens, they don't think like, let me ask for some help, or maybe there's something better. They just fix it, like duct tape it together, just whatever needs to happen to keep going, because that's what they're used to doing. They're not used to having support from anyone, right? They're used to the cops going to roll up any minute and shut them down. So yeah, their brains are in other places. So when I come from a place of like efficiency and UX and everything, I can see it all over the place. And if they give me their, their trust, and we do a couple changes, you know, it's pretty night and day.
How do you build trust with them?
I think it's just doing what you say you're going to do, and being honest when something's going wrong, and tell them what you're going to do to fix it. Again, all my competitors, a sale won't go through. It won't get reported to the governing body. 2 months will go by. Now they're not in compliance. Now they can get a $5,000 fine. If the Oregon's really an asshole, they could shut them down, and they won't even tell them. They'll find it and they'll call them and be like, hey, what happened with this sale? It didn't go through. And they're like, oh, you know, sorry, we have 1,000 stores, so we don't really care. Yeah, like we've had a few disasters where stores didn't sync for a little while, and I would call shaking, you know, like, oh God, this is gonna be terrible. You know, call a store and be like, hey, yesterday a couple of your sales didn't sync. We've synced them for you. It's done, but you were technically out of compliance for those days. So I'm sorry. It's really embarrassing, but you know, that's what happened. We fixed it. It won't happen again. The last time that happened, the person who I was speaking with, he was a new customer. He said, Mike, if that's the worst thing, or he's like, when you called me, I was really worried. And I was like, yeah, like, yeah, it's really bad. And he was like, but if this is the worst thing that you call to tell me in our relationship, he's like, then I'll shit a fucking rainbow. So I'm not supposed to curse, but that's literally what he said, because he's so used to just the garbage competition, you know. He calls them garbage people, actually. It was kind of funny.
So how would what you're learning in the cannabis industry translate to, say, another type of industry? You've done other design work for other types of clients. How would you take what you're learning with the cannabis industry and apply it to other companies?
If you have the trust of the company or the person you're speaking with to get in there and see how they're doing things, maybe firsthand, I feel like if you're watching this person do their job, and I know this is super hard now, right? It'd have to be over Zoom or something. But if you can have them kind of walk through why they're doing what they're doing, and then just kind of try to punch holes in it, you know, well, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing that way? Let them say, I don't know, you know, and then you go, well, you know, I have this other thing, you know, I have this other idea over here, could automate it or whatever. You know, you guys know your industries, but I think that's kind of how getting down on their level, getting dirty with them, and getting into the weeds with them, because they do it every day. So it's kind of a routine at this point. They're not thinking of how they can make it better, especially in my industry. They're just trying to think of how to keep it online and keep it going, keep the sales coming in. But there's a million ways of improvements. Like, for example, we eliminated a whole staffing position at a shop by releasing a feature that syncs your menu to online menus that people use, as opposed to having a dedicated person that have to sit there every day and manually say, oh, we just sold 5 of these, let me update the website. Oh, this price is down $1, let me update the website. Because if someone goes to the website, it says $10 and they come in the shop and it's 15, they're going to be like, well, you know, they're going to lose it, right? So having that automate is huge. So we did that, and now that person can do something else in the shop, make more sales, whatever.
Cool.
But they would have never thought of that kind of stuff. It's just really interesting.
Does anybody else have any feedback on that?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. You know, like a lot of people say, hey, AI and technology is going to eliminate jobs. But the reality is that it's going to shift and change and transform the work that you do into non-mundane work. Who the heck likes to sit around to do production work, keyboard typing, pasting stuff, or, you know, to the point of the cannabis store, like manually updating inventory? Why do you have to do that, right? So it's shifting the perspective of like, AI is going to make your life better, right? The jobs will still be there, but it'll fundamentally shift the production work onto what technology does best. We have about 2 minutes left. Any closing thoughts? I want to thank you for this time. Closing thoughts.
I also think, Michael, you have a great leadership of keeping your team as you're a partner with them, so you're able to text, and it's not that you're just this expert that they can't reach. I also think that that's a great way to build trust too, is what I see in what you shared.
Yeah, I never pretend to be an expert at all. I would say the first thing you would, if anybody asks you a question that you don't know, just say, I don't know. You know, never pretend to be smart and try to have an answer for it. I think that alone is huge. Because then when you do come to the table with something, I think you're more inclined to be heard, because you don't, speak up about everything and have an opinion on everything.
I want to thank you so much for taking this time to join our fireside chat. I hope that has been helpful for you and insightful. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, you, everybody. Andrew.
I went and talked too much.
Thanks, guys.